Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 21st of April. And we start off the post Easter. Of course, you had the Good Friday, very limited reaction, but we're already starting in a serious negative. And that was the MBI White that had led from before, has continued with the decline here of magenta and magenta clearly under yellow at this particular stage from a daily standpoint. You can see orange has on the DOC here has moved in between cyan and red, and that's usually a continuation pattern. So no shock with any of that. And we were calling for this kind of move even from the 50K when we were able to see, and we'll look at it a little bit later, where the MBI White was in the lead. It was just a matter of waiting for it to fulfill. It's starting to do that, but you can see continued decline of shakeout. Now, of course, when that turns around, it's going to be matching and lower to the previous. And if price is higher, then well, you've built your bull case inside of it, despite the weakness. And of course, what most of this is really this battle between the Fed and the administration. The administration wants liquidity during this whole tariff situation, and the Fed's just like, no, we're not going to participate. We're actually going to be counterproductive, meaning they're really tightening the liquidity, which is very odd because when we had the higher inflation back in September, and then when they cut rates. For no reason in an inflationary environment just before the election. None of it made sense. And now when it's actually relevant, they don't do it. So, yeah, that's kind of why you're getting that vocal war between the president, because it doesn't support what he needs to fulfill the tariff policy. And that's mostly probably because the Fed doesn't like it. Oh well, but those are the realities of it. The market's trying to figure out where to go in between that because it does impact their global trade situation. Still a net benefit for individual American companies, at least the small ones. They're going to prosper from that construct over the longer term and not in the short term per se. From a treasury standpoint, you can see there just isn't going to be a whole lot of activity within this. And we know that the Chinese are continuing to sell, and part of the dollar weakness is going to be that slow bleed. It'll be interesting to see where we finally end up when the Chinese are done with this fight, how much they have left from a reserve standpoint, because it seems like they're liquidating quite a bit of their U.S. treasuries. They're fighting the Panama situation. Now they're doing it with individual companies trying to apply indirect pressure. We'll see if it's effective. From an oil standpoint, caught right in between. This is modest, but still too high to have any material impact on growth as far as that goes. But it certainly has put a stop to relative inflationary increases, and that's kind of a benefit. It's just going to take longer than anyone anticipated for any of the reforms and changes to affect. And you can see the euro skyrocketing this. So this effectively negates any tariff, which many of them have been suspended. So this jump within the euro, which is already still in recession as it is, so it's like, what is going on with that one? It's simply a rebalancing and people repatriating money. This idea of uncertainty and fear, and we all know what happens in markets when there's fear. People just freeze and or try and put their money in safe places. So gold continue 34 now. No surprise with any of that. Also, we see finally Bitcoin breaking out a little bit from that resistance range right there, as magenta was able to stay above yellow in this particular case. Even when we popped up here, shorts were increasing, and so this becomes a nice little short squeeze. Perfect setup in that one. And when we flip to ETH, modest, not even close. And this is starting to show the disparity in quality, or at least how the market views quality of crypto versus. So this is what we were talking about before here, where we had the MBI White spikes, and secondarily, you had a little bit of weakness. We had a partial move, but only came to the 23%. Magenta moved back above. That was the push. But once we got to the 50%, boom, MBI White spiked at that particular stage, and that set it up. We expected that we would move back towards the zero on that once Magenta moved under, and there it did, and then dropped below the 25. Held on for a little bit, but you can see in the open here, we're going all the way back to the zero. So fills it beautifully. A lot of times with that rising gold, it can maintain, but you can see it flattened off and then started to trail a little bit, and that led to the final breakdown. And that's usually your saving grace, is when that shakeout gold is rising, tends to prevent that fruition of the MBI white move. But even from a DOC standpoint, you can see orange caught between the red and cyan, so the continuation move was to the side, but we ended up with the white spike, and that led to this breakdown that started right now. There's going to be that back and forth until there's some kind of clarity in the situation. Going back to the previous day, you can see a lot of erratic because of option setup, and with the shortened week with Good Friday, you had a lot of stuff had to get resolved earlier. But you can see here in the European session, it's just all negative at this particular stage. Of course, the Pope, had just passed away as well. So from a European session, you might get a little bit of softness just from the sentiment of that. But that's not going to really have much of a geopolitical or economic situation. But really, as we start to look forward, we're going to have to see where the resolution on Ukraine situation is. The U.S. going to pull out completely? Those kind of developments, and whether there will be any increased hostilities in the Mideast or even in the Yemen conflict. So those are the slight unknowns, but they're known in a broader capacity. And until we get really solid economic data that puts us in a track as to where the U.S. economy is imbalanced, is really what I would be looking for. We want to see where certain areas are doing better, certain states, because I think that's where you're going to start to see a divergence in growth. That's the long and the short of it for now, but we're going to start a new one here. So let's get at it. As always, trade well. Have a good one.